Okay, more fun under the truck. So, I'll try and focus on this stuff as I come in here. See the old bits. Alright, so up in there we have a nice, shiny Borgeson steering box on this Dodge Ram 3500. A couple weeks ago, it had a redhead steering box that had just been installed that was not in great shape after about 4 or 5 hours of use. It had a steel cap, and I'll show pictures of this, that fractured. On that end. Now, the problem we got is the Borgeson's a little bit bigger, and this big brace, which I'm backing up to give you an idea what it looks like here, bolts on using these mounts. There's supposed to be 4 bolts, 2 on each end, and on the other end right now, if I slide all the way up here and look up there directly, what you'll see on the mount is we've only got 2. One on this end instead of the 2 that we're supposed to have. Sorry for the shaky camera work. So what I got to do is take the steel bar off. I'm going to have to rethread the hole, where the threads are bungeed up over there where the mounting bolt's supposed to go. Chase the threads on the mounting bolt, and then probably take a die grinder to this brace, since it's supposed to have a special size holes to it. They're supposed to allow adjustability. Since the Borgeson box sets everything over just a fraction, they're maxed out setting up that brace for the end of the steering shaft and not leaving quite enough room by just a little to get those bolts in that hold the stabilizer bar. So I got to take it all the way apart and fix it up. So what we're going to do is do that. Let's see if we can't get ourselves a nice little camera base going here. Alright, let's try it all again and get a little bit of a brace going on here in such a way that we can see what's going on up in here. That ain't going to work too good. I may be trimming this video a bit. Right. So, let's get a little air going. Some wrenches and see if we can't peel some stuff off here. Yep, that's what I thought it was. It's 3/4. Kind of a low light situation under here. I probably should get the light, which I'll do when I get out of here, but now I'll drop this off, which is the bearing that holds the bottom. Let's turn that backwards. Thank you. That should get that loose. These are nylocked, so they weren't really ridiculously tight. I did a lot of this 2 weeks ago, doing it shade tree style, laying in a gravel driveway at my friend's house. Not the best way to do it by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think the top of that bolt is 3/4. Well, let's see what we can do. Oh, look at that. That's just long enough that it wants a slightly extended socket. This is altogether going to work well. remember it being a pain up there too. Alright, there we go. All the pieces off. That's that. This thing comes down fairly well on top of your head in a very embarrassing and painful way if you're not paying attention. That's 2 bolts there. And there'll be 1, 2, 3, 4 that I got to take out that I think are also 3/4. I'll verify that real quick. No, 5/8. See my ugly butt mess with mechanical stuff. Oh man, some days I wish I had a lift. Okay, there's one out. Yeah, this is gonna be fun because it's gonna want to drop right on my head. Yep, there it goes. Right down. All at once. Okay. So, what I gotta do is change these slots right here. You can just see them. And make them wider in the right way so that the thing can move a little bit further across. And we have just a tool called a die grinder to do that. But the other thing I gotta fix is one of these holes needs to be rechased and one of the bolts needs to be cleaned up. So we'll do that in a second. Alright, so a couple of details. This is one of the bolts supposed to go in there. Trying to figure out what the tap is. You know, most things are metric nowadays, but the way to tell is if you look at the head of the bolt, you see how it says 8.8 on it right there. Your indication of metric strength is going to be in those numbers instead of grade. Excuse me very much. Instead of saying grade, 8.8 indicates it's metric. Now, one of the additional things is they make nice little gauges for telling what the thread pitch is on nuts, bolts, screws, whatever. But the thing you want to do that will prove it to you is if you take a tap like that, you can use it as a thread gauge simply by, I'm going to get this light so it's right over what I'm doing. If you get the thread gauge and you lay the tap along the threads and you come in at an angle like this, if that thing lines up with the first thread and then just lays in and is tight in all the threads, as opposed to laying across, laying up, laying down, trying to do other things, you've got the right thread pitch. Now, as to whether or not it's the right size to match it, it's kind of easy to look across it and see it's the same size. But the other thing is I got a box full of metric hardware, an N10 1x1.5 nut screws right on that bolt. Now the bolt itself is basically fine, but the hole needs to be chased. So we get the tap handle and the tap out of my trusty rusty Craftsman kit from way back when. It's only so good. It'd be nice with a snap-on, but I ain't got that kind of money. It'd be nice if I'd not dropped the bolts all the way down in there. Hang on a minute. Y'all know what Murphy says about drop bolts. They go just about as far away from you as they can get. Alright, back to the little project. We'll tap this hole out. Get it looking like it's supposed to. Coming down. Up in and under it. Okay. So, our hole in question is right up there. slightly stand the camera here as best I can to see it, which is trying to fall off the view. That's terrible, but it's close enough. And it's the top, or is it the bottom hole? I don't know which. They both look kind of rough. So we'll just gently try to feed the tap in. When you haven't got the threads perfect at the beginning, it's always good to just take your time, get it started, because the beginning of the tap isn't full size. You don't want to accidentally overcut the thread and tear it up. So you don't want to be cutting extras. You just want to chase the threads out so that the bolt will go on up in there. You want to get the full body of the tap. These taps are standard taps, not bottoming taps, so they have to be run way in, or they won't do you any good. So I've got it way up in there now. Now I'll back it on out. When you have a hole that doesn't have a backside that you can get out of, you need something called a bottoming tap. I just wonder. That's oil. Is it coming from our feeds up here? I got a leak. I got one. I got two. The only thing wrong with these Dodges as they get older is they leak all over the place. Well, that ain't coming. It's getting to be fall around here. The sound of acorns bouncing off of stuff is just a terrific little surprise you get. Alright, so now as I come out, I want to grab the tap so that it keeps coming out square and releases, and then I'll chase this hole because it's kind of a rusty, corrupt mess as well. Not worried about the other ones. This one, I just want to make sure it's clean. Whoops. Come on. Go clean. Getting a little bit of metal pulling off of it. These both got a little bungeed up there. I was having a terrible time getting them to fit. Alright, that's better. The worst part is they're nuts that were welded on in the frame rails when they welded the frame sections together. There ain't no fixing this. It's got to be right. Alright, now take a quick look at how the bolt threads up in there. It shouldn't be too tough to get started, and it should just thread. Yeah, that's one of them. Going just fine. The other one goes nice and good. Yep, they thread in there about beautifully. So, next magical trick is take this little jewel around the corner and go ahead and take that steel, and I'm going to widen it up just a fraction. What's really doing it is these spacers right here. This Borgeson box sits over on these spacers, and it just needs a fraction more than the default box does. The standard box sits over, so this shaft right here you can't quite see, which I'll make so you can. The end of the Pitman arm shaft sits over a fraction, like 2 millimeters that way, which ain't helpful. Anyway, see you in a second when we get over to the other half. Alright, so I've loaded up the die grinder with the straight barrel cutter, and it's got a little bit of crud in it. These things tend to throw chips everywhere, so it's a really sharp idea to have your safety glasses on. And what I need to do is take this hole, this slot, and move it over. So gotta balance it off my hand so it doesn't run away from me.
Okay, so I'm giving a view of one end of this rather than both ends. Problem is, holding it all in place is a real pain. So what I end up doing is putting the jack in the middle. Minus that, please. Since I don't want to hurt it. I get the floor jack involved here in such a way that it will be fitted onto this guy. Okay. That gets it generally in place. Then with no grace and no skill, I bring this guy up in here. Because it just becomes the third arm I got in there. Coming up. Now I don't want it all the way up there. I want everything maneuverable so that I can get these bolts to start. But first things first, we're going to maneuver our way through. And of course they're all extraordinarily flexible because of the nature of what I'm dealing with here. No, it's metric bolts, but a 5/8 6-point socket will actually start these things up in there. And that spare hand right there is really important. So, since this is just a fitting bastard, I want it up there within about 1/8 of an inch, but I don't want it any tighter. I want a lot of slop in it, and it's too tight. I want it loose so that I'm not arguing with it. Well, I am arguing with it, but the intention is to get it to slide into where it belongs. Alright, I got that, I got that. Now the question is, do I got a hole to put it in? Now, we thread. Not quite, so let's get a little more hand action here. Yeah, see, there it is. It just takes a fraction. Get this started. And pulled up a chunk of the way. Okay, that's good. Now, the whole road shell, has got to go over there. So, let's move our butt to the other side. Where we can generally see what's going on. He said it's a little hard from the angle. That seems to be pointed generally in the right direction. And we'll give it a little background light so that it's possible to see things and shift ourselves over there. I've rolled around on the ground. Okay. Now this is the part that didn't go so good at my friend's place. Wow, that's a nice view of the jack and not much of the work. Let's see if we can't move that around a little. The jack is not that interesting, and the work is. Let's get our view up to about there, and then we'll move the light around. So, kind of helps me see what I'm doing too. Alright. Yeah. Seems to be in the right general direction. Now, the fun part commences of trying to thread our way into all this mess. I've really got to see it. Okay, that feels much better. Take it up slow. That's got positive thread action going on. Alright, that's good. The other one needs to go up through there. And this is the one I gotta feel my way into. Actually, wouldn't hurt if I put my eyeballs where I could see them. Move all the crap out the way. And move my head back in here a little ways. So, yeah, that's what I was thinking. That thing is way off. It's got to go over there. And that's what got me into so much trouble at my friend's place, because it wouldn't line up. Eeny, meeny, miny, moo. Ah, it's underneath my shoulders. There we go. So now if we gently spin it, it should take to those threads and run on up in there. Yeah, there we go. You would not believe the amount of fuss I had to go through to try and do that in my friend's place. Just fighting and fighting and fighting with it. The steering box is basically centered pretty well. And the hole is not perfect because, again, it's too wide, but just a fraction. Tighten it up good. Feel it, but don't strip it. Ugh. This is just the brace that you can put in here that gets on the end of the pitman arm. These Dodges have, well, they're kind of famous for their problems with the death wobble. And there are a couple of reasons for it. The suspension's a little light for one of these one-ton trucks. The older models had a pitman arm steering box problem where they would get kind of sloppy because of that. And they also had a problem with the pannered, well, not the pannered rod. I can't remember the name of it right now, but I'll show it to you in a minute when I take a picture of it. But that extra little piece of problems was extraordinarily annoying. And I've used something called Luke's Links underneath here to make the problem a lot less. Okay. 3/4 here, 3/4 there. I got my 3/4 in this, don't I? That's too big. That's too big. Where's the last one? There it is. Oh, come on. You don't have to be a pain. Just go up. Right, that's one. And then we do two. Excuse the banging wrenches. This will be easier with the gun, but I mean the hand wrench works. Well, it might be easier. You know what would make your life a lot easier? Getting this thing out of the way. Bye-bye, Jack. Then I can move a little bit, stick my hair in the camera lens, which would look really, really cool. I think my puke bottle is full again. That's nice. Split that. Pull real hard. One more time. These are nylock nuts, but still, a little tightness would be good. Alright. Ever so much better. Now, the only problem is, I'm one tooth off on the Borgeson shaft up there that talks to the Borgeson box, and I never ran the lock that has to be on there to make sure that the thing doesn't slide off. But still, if you crunch the truck, it will let the shaft shorten. There's a really weird little lock up there kept on with some special fasteners. Alright, so let's have a look at a couple of things here. So, to get rid of the death wobble, we got this rod. I'm going to turn the light on it.
that runs right there. I'll shine a light above it. That particular rod runs across over the pumpkin for the four-wheel drive and onto the other side and goes into that nut over there. Yeah, I know it's twisting upside down. Let me twist it back. Here we go. So, problem with these things is what they normally used was a standard tie rod end right there. And that standard tie rod end would wear out, the spring would die. What's loaded in here right now is something called Luke's Links. They are adjustable. They can be greased and made to work for a very long time. If they need to be adjusted, you put washers inside them. But internally what they have is a nylon spring, not the old steel spring that you find in the ball or tie rod ends. And the joints have been replaced on the Panhard rod, the Pitman arm, the far end of the tie rod there, the far end, let me rotate the camera around here, the far end of that tie rod there, and special bushings have been put into the Panhard rod on that end, and of course the steering linkage to the tie rod, or the bar that runs across it has the tie rods, has a Luke's link in it as well. The steering on this thing is 100% stable. I don't have any issues with it. They do make a kit to come up to the newer style stuff for right there to put in the, I think it's 2004 or 2008 version of the rod, but actually the Luke links work. I'll have to put the number somewhere on this for the actual rod that runs across. Getting the right one of those is a pain because Moog went to a larger bar, larger tie rod end, and it didn't work. But the Luke's links won't work with it. You have to have the smaller one, and Napa sells a bar, or you can buy it from Luke's Link. Given the price that Napa wants for the thing, it's easier to just buy the one from Luke's Links and use it. And my God, is it greasy as sin under here. Oh, speaking of fun, if you look at the ends of the axle, there's oil on the bottom. That is not a good thing. I am losing my seals inside the axle shaft, which means I'm gonna have to do the axle shaft before long, and this one on the driver's side is especially bad. You can see how greasy that thing is. That's not a good scene. And Daddy doesn't want to do seals, but he's gonna have to. Oh well. Anyway, onward to the next piece. Alright, so the next piece of this, where the light is really shiny, that's the Borgeson shaft that goes to the steering box. Down, way down low down there, which is really hard to see, I'll move the camera over here and hopefully get something of it, is a coupling. Let's see if I can get some light on it down there. Focus, come on, you can do it. Doesn't seem to want it. Wants to look at the steering pieces, but not the bits I need to see. Yeah, there we go. Right on the back of the box, there is a coupler down there that Borgeson uses. Two couplers locked together, and I need to take that coupler loose, move it one tooth counterclockwise, and then I got to put a special lock nut on. Let's see if I can see the lock nut here. Where is it? Yeah, I can just see it down there. Let's see. So go past the little blue pipe, look down there on the shaft, which is kind of highlighted. Past the little blue pipe, down at the bottom end of the shaft, there's a sliding collar there that needs to be slid up and locked in place with an Allen wrench. Once that's done, I will have the steering 100% completed, except for a leak coming from up here that I have no idea what it is. And when I look at the top of the steering box, it is dry as a bone. So it is not the steering box leaking that I see down there, he said thoughtfully. It may have been old oil, because I managed to get crap all over this thing trying to work in that guy's yard. So anyway, this is going to be hard to film, so I'm just going to do it, and we'll come back when we're done. Okay, so if I follow my finger here, it's pointing and blocking the light at the silver dingus right there that I'm touching. That's the lock that holds the steering shaft from being able to back out at the bottom. It's a safety feature. Borgeson makes their shafts pretty complicated, but it works real well. And then the other piece is up here, and if I look down in there carefully enough, all the pieces are where they need to go. Let me see if I can get the light concentrated way down in there. This is about a bloody impossible shot to get, but if we look down in there with care, let me get where I'm in the right place I'm going to be. If I slide on down and look right up in there, get that wire out the way, you should have a clean shot of the Borgeson shaft going down, and then over there right behind that rubber hose is the collar where it connects to the extension on the Borgeson box. And that there has all been adjusted. So hopefully we got it all where we want it. And that marks an end to this, other than cleaning up all the tools.